The chat was going wild when G2 even took the first map. So a real sign that they're improving. And who would have thought, you know, getting an IGL actually helps.
Welcome back, everybody, to Valoranting, the podcast, the show that is always accompanied by a really pleasant wood fire smell. That's all the bridges that we burn on our way to find the truth. Welcome back after the break here. We've got plenty of results to cover here. A little bit less of the discussion around the social issues affecting Valorant at large and more about exactly what went down over the weekend. So let's start with VCT EU. They're already into stage 2. These motherfuckers are crazy fast. And like we mentioned before, Mitch, from the round of 64 onward, we actually had these games were able to be covered, which is obviously pretty sweet. So we got to see a little bit more of it than usual. Seeing here, obviously, this is a qualification run, if I'm not mistaken. Is this the?
This is stage 2, week 1.
Oh, okay, sorry, we're gonna go back. So we're going, So week. So it's challenges 1. Sorry. All right, I'm sorted out now. Obviously, FPX make their way all the way through here. Opportunists, obviously, for those that aren't aware, are Defuse, so rebranded, and they go pretty well here in this lower side.
Yeah, man, they almost took FPX down. They really did. And it was at that stage I was ready to turn around after seeing the guild game as well and say, first of all, double elim, please. But opportunists, they're probably in that bracket at least. I think they were the second best team, hands down. And it's I think if opportunists came up against guild don't qualify. That's almost a certainty in my mind because they're so clean right now, man. They're a team that have barely been together that long. Like they stuck with it. They had a couple of bad results, didn't disperse. I know there was conversations around some of the players potentially looking into other options, and then they committed to it. And that was really nice to see because this is a team that has not only tactical depth, but they have some of the most impressive stats in the game right now. Like, I found it funny when I was looking through the stat sheets and seeing that they play from behind a lot. Like when we think of opportunists, we think of clutch potential because so many of these players, they clutch out rounds that they just absolutely shouldn't. But when you look at the stats, they have to because they end up losing a lot of the opening duels, and yet they still always answer back. They're an explosive team, but they can slow it down as well. I love watching this team play. But FPX, they've always been the gods, right? They've always been the ones that were hot on the heels of G2, but they were playing the long game, as Angel always told us. He's not looking to win the biggest tournaments on day 1 of Valorant. He was worried about making the team that could compete a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line, and that's exactly what he's built here. First team to qualify and taking top seed out of it.
Yeah, I mean, Angel's so interesting. He plays what? In that series, he plays Astra when because Shadow plays Breach at one point, right?
Yeah, man.
Shadow was normally playing Astra, but then Angel plays Astra and then plays Phoenix there on Haven, which is such a weird combination of agents to play. Nothing about Angel is standard.
Yeah, that's the thing I love about Angel, though. He's so willing to just do whatever he needs to for his team. Like, we saw him play Viper, we've seen Reyna, we've seen Phoenix, we've seen Astra. That's in the last 2 games that they've played right up to the end of that leg of VCT. So in this team, and Angel was one of the first people to say it when we asked him very early on, obviously with the concept back then, before we even had the likes of Reyna in the game, we asked him, what do you think? Like, can you just play one agent? Can you be a jet main with no other agent in your back pocket? And he said, absolutely not. You know, this game is going to evolve to a point where some of these agents might be irrelevant, where some of the others are going to be just too strong for you to deny playing them. And he was the first advocate for, I want a team where everybody can play multiple roles, not only just because it could be necessary for a meta game, but also because then you can just throw your opponents completely off guard if your lineups are changing game to game. And we've seen exactly the benefit of that coming throughout that leg of VCT.
And you kind of mentioned it already, Mitch, that final was pretty fucking disappointing. You know, seeing Guild obviously go up against FPX. Obviously, it's not uncommon to see our semifinals get played like, you know, look better than the grand finals. But I mean, how much is there to really say about that? Zipan drops 33 kills on Icebox on Reyna, absolutely ruining Guild. Guild, do they even get above 10 rounds? No, what they lose 13-9, 13-5, 13-4.
Yep.
Yikes.
It was
not much
bad
to say here, huh?
Yeah, it was bad. Like, on Icebox, we're like, okay, well, you know what? Guild were obviously uncomfortable. It's a strong pick for FPX. They didn't have a ban. It can't be worse than that because Guild are so good on split. And then it was 13-4. Yeah, it was disappointing for sure. And I think it only goes further to the narrative I'm going to be just droning on about all day long is we need double elim. I think we saw it this week as well with some big teams going out. GT versus Heretics is the main one. I don't mean any disrespect to C Calling, but I don't know who they are. And Heretics are possibly the second best team, up there in the top 4, top 5 at least. And they're now out of the running for Masters, which is insane. And it's because we don't have double elim for the same reason that Guild qualified over Opportunists, because due to the seeding, FPX had to play against Opportunists. That would have been a sick grand final, and they would have done a much better job than Guild. Do I think Guild don't deserve Masters or whatever? No, absolutely not. They're a really good team. In Challengers finals, it'll be interesting seeing them, and I think they probably would have made it through this week anyways. But I still think Opportunists should have been on top of that pile.
Sure. I mean, this is also like, I mean, after watching Ascent sort of play in Masters and sort of seeing that team very quickly just sort of provide a dominant performance, I'm so shocked to see them go out so early against NIP here, who then lose to Guild. It's like the poop rolling down the hill with it, because Guild looked so bad in the final, but Guild beat NIP, who beat Ascent. So it seems like what's going on in Europe right now? Is it just with Astra being involved, it's more volatile? I mean, even Alliance. So your team struggles in that first game against Guild.
Yeah, no. The thing is, like, when you look at how the depth of teams within Europe right now, there's so much that can surprise you. And I think for Guild, they're a very unique team that play much more aggressive in the opening rounds. Like, to contain Yassine. Yassine is a man who has gone on record and basically said that he makes decisions not because of, tactical depth or what makes sense in the moment or weighing up his options. It's his chakra. Now, that pissed me off, but it works. That's the thing. Like, it genuinely works. He's so hard to predict, and when he gets in a flow, you have a task on your hands containing him. You look at Ascend. Obviously, CNED is an animal, and at the very start of VCT, I've said it a few times on stream that I referred to this team when we first saw them on stream. Again, because we didn't have open qualifier stream, so I'd never seen them play. I called them CNED and 4 dudes, because that's what I thought they were. I thought, if CNED is a bad game, they've lost. Like, it's easy. And yet, they actually turned up and played some of the most strategic gameplay that we've seen. They were really nice. They used CNEDs up aggressively, but they have the support there, and I think that was shown by the fact that Cole Dementa, despite being on a team with CNED, who they close out most rounds pretty cleanly, he actually had the most, and he's only playing Sova as well, so it's not like a breach. He has the most assists per round in the entirety of VCT. That's running through last week and this week. I think it was like 0.4 per round, which was insane. Obviously G2 now with a fresh face, they're looking unbelievable. We've talked about Opportunists, we've talked about FPX, Heretics. They're coming off their 6-man roster now. They're gone back to 5 with, I believe. I don't think that was a choice, though, like we would expect, right? You would say, like, oh, yeah, because 6-man roster is like the conversation we had earlier. It's like it was more health issues with Nisao. Yeah, he needed to go for family reasons. So that's fair enough. They've made that decision. Maybe they'll return to it later on. You have Liquid starting to look a whole lot better. Like, it is insanely difficult to be in European Valorant right now. I think you've almost got like FPX as the #1 team and everyone else just fighting it out for those other slots. Like, NIP would easily have been my top 3, and yet they underperformed again.
Absolutely. I'd be interested to see what their use rates actually are for Astra in general. Obviously, we've got to see a little bit more from Europe as we segue into that segment, because we just had the end of the Challenges Stage 2. Challenges 2, week 2 of challenges ended. And here's the bracket. Oh, fuck me. I mean, like, what am I supposed to do? So what this does, this includes, I think, I'm trying to interpret this. This is the quarterfinals bracket, and it also includes the seeding, the play-in. So this is what, round of 16?
I think it's even more, because right now it's going even further back.
It goes to round of 32, I think.
Yeah.
So let's start with this, right? Let's Ascend. I think this is in the play-in bracket. They go up against a team known as Illumina, which is a Polish roster. I think I'm familiar with Grabinho. I don't know where I know that name from, but anyway. So Ascend here, obviously they, after a pretty average challenges 1 here, they go up against this Illumina team, and it's actually a decent series. So, I mean, no other way to put it. This one does get streamed, if I'm not mistaken. This is Lothar's stream covers it, right?
Yeah, exactly. He was doing a good job with it too.
These boys are, they were actually very deep in the previous VCT, but they were playing under the name Chakalaka, and I can tell you they are a bitch to scrim against. They are really, really solid as a team. And obviously carrying it through into outside of scrims as well. The fact that they managed to not only take a map off of Ascend, like, okay, map 2 is 13-2. They got smashed. Bind was extremely close, though. That's the last round there, 13-9. But they beat them on Ascent 13-4. They trashed them. And the fact that they've been able to put up such a good fight, they came out of left field in the last wing of VCT. That's what I've taken to calling because I can never fucking remember what it's actually called. Stage 7 of part 3, I don't know. But the
Section 501.c, yeah.
Ah, yes, let me just scroll to that one. Yeah, it's hard to follow for sure. But in the last leg of it, they made it really far, kind of out of nowhere. A lot of teams were surprised by them. And then obviously coming into this one, they've picked up an organization and they've made a pretty good name for themselves. Again, a team that could have made it much further with a double elim bracket. I'm here with an agenda, and hopefully we'll see more from them in the future.
Thanks, Lothar. Obviously, Lothar, who casted the game in chat, just pointing out that IHG had some pretty average compositions on Icebox. No flashes or smokes on Icebox there, so maybe that series goes a little bit closer had that not been the case. On Ryan Central's stream, he covered Fanatic going up against the team known as Saw, who are a Portuguese roster. One of the players I recognize as a tier 2 Overwatch player. His name is Fat. This series here, this is where we get to see, how do we pronounce this guy's name? Durka and Magnum, right? And Durka on the Jet. Also, did he play Sova in the second map as well?
Yes.
Wow. So, I mean, wow, quite flexible. And Fnatic, this new look looks pretty decent. We touched on it earlier on here, Mitch, but let's refresh.
Yeah, it's nice to see that Durka wasn't coming in with the attitude of, I'm a Jet, so fuck you. He came in and decided, because when they play the second map, you look at their composition there, they're playing with Viper, and when you're playing with Viper, you can get so much value out of having that Sova, more so than out of Jet. So I really appreciate him making those kind of plays, being willing to put himself on an agent where he cannot perform the same way, because he wasn't leading the scoreboard in that, but they edged out the victory. Again, saw a team that's impressed people, and one that would have went by the wayside. The point I was making while we were casting over the weekend was that for the most part, if you look back on how some of these games went, like for example, you would just look at the scoreboard and go, oh, Fnatic 2-0 Saw, cool, so we don't need to worry about Saw. You'd look at the games, go, oh, they were kind of close, but yeah, I guess Fnatic just kind of knew they'd win. They played loose and all this sort of shit. But no, Saw are actually a pretty decent team. We got to see thanks to, I think it was Ryan streaming that one. And yeah, I think great look at the new Fnatic roster. Good promise for Portuguese teams. It just makes me so happy, man, seeing all these other teams I'm not used to seeing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that we actually get to see these games covered. Speaking of which, obviously on the mainstream, we'll call it the mainstream just for the ease of reference, it is G2 versus Heretics. Now, I had baby duty in the morning, so I'm sat on the couch like groggy at 7 a.m. watching this game, and yeah, I'm very impressed to see G2 show a bit more depth. Icebox was a really close affair. I think we saw Split first up in this series as well, and this is obviously Patstech moving over and playing a bit more of that Rain here, and we are starting to see Ozzy perform, looking really good.
Yeah, Patatek won MVP of that series, and it's not surprising when you look at his Icebox performance. Dude went 7 for 1 in opening duels. You could just feel it. It came to a certain point in the second half where G2, they were just playing so aggressive. They were getting themselves into positions where they could capitalize off of, but it almost slipped away from them. You know, that over-aggression almost cost them the map. The fact that obviously we have Heretics as one of the top teams in the EU, I predicted it to be 2-0 for Heretics. I think most people did. The chat was going wild when G2 even took the first map. So a real sign that they're improving, and who would have thought, you know, getting an IGL actually helps.
It's so bizarre to me that they can just bring an IGL in and have him actually IGL and get these results. Like, I never heard of a plug and play IGL solution for a roster before.
That's true.
But it also gives a lot, I guess, to Ozzy then, right? On how much he's been probably watching this game and studying the game. I don't know if he's necessarily played for any other teams before at a high level, but I'm pretty sure he's the type of person or the type of player that is going to be watching a lot and study this game as an IGL, and to be able to like say, okay, well, this is how G2 plays. This is how I think it should work. I guess he has some tie-ins with artists to be able to get picked up here, but yeah, I think they looked great overall. I think I haven't watched the Icebox game, but I did watch the Split game, and like they had rounds where like even Pith was playing by himself inside B as a Cypher, because they had all of their players playing towards A heaven and mid, just because they had predictions that Heretics was going to hit that spot, and it did, and it worked out. And other times where Ozzy's even playing towards like top of trash of B, you have an execution that's going to happen towards this B site where Mixwell's like, well, screw it, he's going to throw some paint shells. Everybody's focused on him at the same time. Through a Cosmic Divide, there's Frost Orbs that comes in from G2 as well. So nobody focuses on Ozzy on trash, and he gets like a 2K on top of that. So I think in terms of even synergy on how they want to work together with Ozzy right now, and the communication with what they have for G2 has been upgraded. That's what I meant to say before. Where I don't want to necessarily lose Zeke, but having Ozzy right now has been a great addition to the roster for G2.
I wonder if G2 are going to integrate Astra play, because I think they're one of the few teams in Europe that just doesn't play her at this time, right?
Yeah, exactly as I was saying though. Like when you get this new player, and especially Ozzy was saying that basically. So we had an interview with him, which was really fun because he sort of confirmed what we expected. That when you're IGLing for G2, it's not so much calling the strategies. Like they have a lot that they can do. They have a lot of ideas. As is Ozzy, it's more so pulling the reins back and be like, no, don't push there. No, come back, come on. No, stop.
It's one of them like it's one of them controversial leashes that you can put on kids that look like backpacks, but they're actually leashes.
Yeah.
Give it a reef ever. No, Pirate Tech, come back here.
It's the invisible fences for the dogs too, which we don't know that one, but yeah.
I hope he's not hitting them. That's hopefully it's all verbal. Aside from artists getting a new shock color, I think everything was pretty good for them. The problem is that he was one other thing, he also drew like lines on a map, like on all the maps, and was like, when we're on an anti-eco, this is the barrier. You don't pass it. You never walk past here. Stop them pushing. Like things like that. So that was his focus coming in. He had to like get them all on the same page in that aspect. So I think to add on top of that, in the limited preparation time they had, playing a new agent and sort of shifting how you think about the game as a team would have been a little bit too much. So I think sticking to the basics was a good idea. But coming down the line, certainly by 2.07, I imagine they will be playing Astra.
Okay. Obviously, I just think it's interesting. You talk about drawing lines on a map, and while that might seem kind of simplistic, that is a protocol. You're establishing protocols here as someone who's standing as an IGL. So I'm quite impressed with that. I'll see if G2 can make use of that going forward. We can't talk about Europe, I don't think, without sort of talking about XDFuse, this opportunists roster now, who they look pretty comfortable in general. And they go up against a team called Klatwa. Okay, brilliant. They qualify for the seeding bracket, which is also the quarterfinal. Look, whatever. They take on a team called CE Calling, who, frankly, I have no idea about. But in general, it looks like this opportunist team is still going to be very dangerous as we get into the main event here of Challengers 2.
Yeah, I've seen CE Calling a little bit. He's Musashi plays on that team, but again, I wouldn't estimate them in the top 8. That's they've slipped through the cracks. We'll see if they maintain it. For opportunists, you mentioned the team that they played against, Klatwa. They're actually a really good Polish team. Again, there's been a couple of teams coming out of Poland now that are really surprising people. Klatwa proved that Ballista were basically there on pot luck and aggression, but they've come through now with what I think is the best Polish roster we've seen so far. When it comes down to opportunists, though, we knew we were going to see them here. We absolutely knew we would, and I think it's sort of a guaranteed death for anybody they come up against in the bracket going through. Once you see them at the end, you might as well take the weekend off and go out for tea, because, well, if you could, without COVID. They're just so damn strong, and I think that the map that we have on the screen here just shows that Bind was often considered kind of the more puggy map, where lesser teams who just have insane aim can bridge the gap between the more strategic teams like Opportunists, and well, they didn't, because Opportunists have individuals coming out their ass.
Yep, that's one way of putting it. They definitely have they're stacked with talent. There's no doubt about it. Hey, we can't talk about this without sort of discussing the elephant in the room. You guys go up against Team Liquid here, which is, and obviously Alliance is a team. You guys have expectations. There's no doubt about it, right? You've got a really star-studded roster, and you're looking for these big results. But looks like Yampi ripped you a new one.
Yeah. Really glad I get to relive this one. It's not a fresh wound or anything, Yeah, it was, I gotta say, for Liquid, they came in prepared. They knew exactly what was going on. They were ready to take us down. We were trialing some new things, because that's the excuse you use now. I've seen it in North America. I've seen it in Europe as well. Heretics were using it last week, So yeah, we just tried out some new things, and that's why we lost. No, we had compositions that we wanted to try, but we'd obviously played them a lot in scrims. We were confident in them, but Liquid knew how to play play against them, and apparently it's just give Yampy a fucking op and let him wreck you. But obviously there's more to it than just that. But this guy has been just unbelievable. Honestly, I think we should just ban everybody from Finland from playing in tournaments, and the world will be a better place.
Hey, how's XMS sort of acclimatizing to the roster? Obviously, the more recent pickup that was teased for a little bit here, obviously increasing the French connection aspect of this team a fair bit. How's he settling in?
So XMS obviously has a lot of experience, like an insane amount of experience behind him. So having him on the roster has been invaluable for teaching the players. Like some of these guys we have are obviously very young. Enzo and Sephiroth and Looker have their history in this game, whereas Hype and Cadaver are much newer. So it's nice to have somebody who has that extra bit of expertise to be that guiding light for the team. Again, if you look at that series, he definitely had a rougher time, but he's been a big performer for us. There's a reason, obviously, that he's coming off of Omen sometimes and going onto the Reyna instead if we're playing the likes of an Astra, which we put on Looker, who's normally our flasher, but was playing a combination of Astra and Phoenix. Some new takes on the game, but ultimately it just comes down to preparation time for us. I think right now we're looking at sticking with this full 5-man roster, still believing in it and in some of the comps that we're running. It's just about getting more practice under the belt, which I guess we've got time for now without Masters.
Yeah, sadly it looks that way, but still, I mean, some promising signs though over that series. Though. I thought that Laka on the Astra looked particularly good.
So just to confirm, looking at this bracket too, though, sorry, it's you guys have to play this, then top 2 goes into like another qualifier before Masters, right? Because you still have to match up against.
You have to play the regionals.
It is single elimination. BO3s. The final team will still play for seeding, but they are through. They then go up against Turkish and CIS teams and European teams to determine which EMEA teams will go through.
Yeah,
and if that's single elimination, I might cry.
So Guild and FPX are already going to be in those challenges, right?
Yes.
And so it's Footballist and Oxygen Esports. So we have the Turkish teams that won challenges one there as well. So that's going to end up being what, like GSL style, right? We're going to have Group A, Group B with double elimination set up. I'm looking at a template here, so I don't know for sure, but either way, that looks exciting. But we still need to see what 2 teams are going there, right? We have 8 teams now. In these Challenges 2 finals. It's not the Challenges finals, it's Challenges 2 stage 2 finals. There's Challenges finals after. That's just general Challenges finals, regional finals. You can call them that if you like. So it kicks off on April the 15th. If you're on the West Coast, or PDT is 8 a.m. PDT, different time zones, figure it out. It's not my responsibility to work out your times. Ascent take on Team Vitality first, then G2 Esports versus Fanatic. Then the next day we have Opportunists NIP and Team Liquid versus CE calling. Here it is. Yinsu, I think, tweeted this now. Great time to be a lover of European Valorant and a great time to get into it right now, especially with all the extra streams and good-looking faces like Mitch is on the broadcast to bring you all the action. Mitch, mate, it's been a pleasure to have you here, man. Thank you so much for letting us pick your brain about European Valorant.
No worries, brother. Absolute pleasure sitting down with you boys. Had some fun.
And of course, big shout out to Hypoc as well, who definitely lent his expertise for much of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to be with you here once again. Next week, we're gonna have a lot to recap. I think we're definitely going to be talking about what happened in Europe. There's going to be a ton of games between now and then. Obviously, in NA, the open qualifiers are going to be kicking off there, so we'll have a ton of stuff to discuss. So take a breather. You've had your fill of hot takes for the week, and we'll see you back here, same time, same place. Remember, it's twitter.com/DNPeak. We have a YouTube now, which is youtube.com/Valoranting, and we're at Valoranting Show is where you can find the Twitter account for this actual show. VanSilly, MitchMan, it's a pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, thanks for joining us, having a ton of fun, and we'll see you next week on Valoranting.